Come on, your house is one of those shacks around here, right? Better, who at home? That's what Susan says. No, my wife's coming to pick me up today, I reply. She looks surprised at first, then bursts into laughter. No way. You've got a car? A truck or maybe a tractor? No, it's my wife's car, so it's not like that. Your wife must be broke too, right? She laughs. Just then, my wife Lisa, with a gentle smile, asks, I could hear your voice all the way in the car. Who are you calling Pooh then? Smiling relaxedly, Susan lets out a gasp, almost like a scream. I suppose the Johnson family is doing well. It seems you only come around to discuss loans with the Main family. No, it's not like that. When I said Pooh, I was talking about Tom. So you're saying you call my husband a poor man? Lisa's eyes narrow like a snake aiming for its prey. She's definitely angry. Once she gets like this, there's no stopping her. I just watch as Susan, who was acting all high and mighty, trembles like a criminal at the guillotine. My name is Tom. I'm just an average doctor running a practice in a small rural town in my hometown. Originally, I worked at a hospital in the city, but the hustle and bustle didn't suit me, so I returned to the tranquility of my hometown. There's a high demand for medical care for the elderly here, but not enough hospitals. I spend my days treating patients who come in with aches and pains after farming and listening to their stories. Then I receive a letter. It's an invitation to a high school reunion. I grew up in this rural area, the son of a farmer. The farm is now run by my brother's family. I didn't come from a wealthy family, and my parents and older brother were kind, but because of that, I always felt apologetic. I was physically weak and couldn't help around the house, so I focused on my studies. I got into a prestigious university, but my goal was medical school. Though I had given up on it due to budget constraints, my parents sold some of our land, and my brother even broke into his savings to gather the money for me. I accepted it with tears and set off alone for the university in the city. Life there was tough. I rented a cheap apartment and worked part-time while attending college. I studied late into the night to keep up with my classes. I must have been really exhausted. One day, a beautiful woman sat in front of me in the cafeteria while I was just drinking water with a pale face. She turned out to be my future wife. She was studying in the economics department and seemed to have been looking out for me, who sometimes sat there alone, idle as sipping water. I was worried because you always looked tired. Sorry for that. No need to apologize. I was captivated by her laughter. We introduced ourselves to each other and gradually became friends, often chatting in the same way. Before I knew it, we fell in love. Having a girlfriend lit a fire under my motivation. I aced both my job and studies, gaining a lot of knowledge. She, understanding my plight as a poor student, prepared homemade lunches for me every day and earnestly took care of me when I felt sick and caught colds easily. I felt guilty for relying on her so much. I love you because you're always trying hard, she said, smiling. So a girlfriend and I graduated and got married. My parents were surprised that I got married right after graduation, and my brother laughed at me, but everyone attended our wedding and celebrated with us. After working for about 20 years in a hospital in the city, I couldn't maintain my health in the urban environment and decided to return to my hometown for treatment. My old classmates back home were surprised that I returned as a doctor, but they welcomed me warmly. I was looking forward to this reunion as a local to meet classmates who had gone to the city. I was eagerly awaiting that day. This year's reunion turned out to be larger than expected. When I mentioned I hadn't expected it to be big enough to book an entire banquet hall at the hotel, my local classmates laughed and said, "It's because Susan is coming." Susan. Who was that again? I searched my memory. You were often absent, Tom, so you might not remember her. She was beautiful, a genius, the belle of our class. That makes sense. Her attendance must have attracted many others, I realized. My classmates looked at me in amazement. What's up? Well, Tom, Susan saw you as a big rival. You were always top of the class. Really? Back then I was just focused on studying, working too hard, and often getting sick, so I didn't interact much with anyone except close friends. The classmates I'm talking to now are ones I started speaking with after returning to the countryside. Returning home, I got to talk to people I couldn't during my desperate younger years, and ended up with more friends than I had in my youth or while living in the city. I'm satisfied with my current situation. As more people started arriving, a commotion arose at the entrance. I wondered what was happening when a glamorous beauty entered, accompanied by several men. I see, she must be Susan. She was indeed beautiful. But to me, my wife is the most beautiful. Please find a seat. Start from the back. There's no particular seating arrangement. That's how it is at a rural reunion. But then Susan glared sharply at me. After scrutinizing me, she said in a cool tone, "Are you Tom by any chance?" We weren't close enough to be on a first-name basis. To me, Susan was almost like a stranger. "Long time no see, Susan. You remember my name?" Susan said with a snort. "Yes," I said vaguely, but Susan didn't seem to care. "Then why didn't you come to greet me? If you knew I was coming, it's only proper to greet me, right?" Sorry, overwhelmed by Susan's forcefulness. I inadvertently apologized to her, but was there any reason to apologize? However, her entourage behind her echoed her sentiments, agreeing with her. This is what I dislike. Poor people, they have no manners. While my family wasn't wealthy, I wondered what she meant. A classmate whispered to me, "Susan comes from a prestigious family." That made sense. Someone born into such a family might look down on someone from a farming background like me. It's a common story in the countryside. Indeed, landlords often have more power than tenant farmers. Susan must have had that kind of elitist mindset. "So where is my seat?" she asked sharply, and I explained that there was no specific seating arrangement. "You can choose any seat from the inside." Just as I said that, Susan stamped her foot in frustration. "There's no seat reserved for me." Unbelievable. She scanned the room, looked at the arranged tables, and signaled something to a man behind her. "Well, what are you?" "I'm having them make a seat of honor for me. Isn't that obvious?" "But there's no need to make a seat of honor. Susan is a member of the Johnson family. Don't let a poor person interfere." Feeling pressured by the men surrounding Susan, I held my tongue. "Don't worry about it. They've always been like that," I said. My friend patted me on the shoulder as if to comfort me. A special seat was set up at the head of the table. Rows of people gathered around, and as if she was the birthday girl, Susan looked on with satisfaction. "You knew I was coming, right? You should have been more considerate." She threw the words at me irritably and sat down in the seat as if it was her due. Her followers surrounded her, occupying nearby seats. People who had arrived early and taken seats were displaced as if they were being chased away. Frustrated by the arrogant behavior, I felt exasperated. Thankfully, those who moved didn't seem bothered. It's just how Susan is, they didn't seem to mind. As more guests arrived, the seats filled up quickly. After Susan gave the opening remarks, everyone started to drink, eat, and gradually began moving around, chatting and enjoying themselves. I was talking with a friend I got along with when suddenly my shoulder was firmly pulled. Turning around, I saw one of Susan's followers. "Susan is calling you. Come." Before I could respond, I was pulled by the man and found myself in front of Susan. She silently pointed to her empty glass. Confused, I didn't understand what she wanted. Seeing my confusion, Susan snapped irritably, "Hello? Can you see? Pour me a drink." Startled by her shout, I hastily grabbed a beer nearby. But Susan frowned even more and glared at me. "You're serving me such cheap beer? But this is all they have for the party. Never mind, just bring me something worthy of me." With the fierce energy of Susan, who seemed like she might throw her glass at me, I escaped to order some drinks from the waitress. Returning with her apparent favorite wine in glasses, I approached Susan again. Susan snatched a glass from me as if that was expected and held it out. I silently poured wine into her glass. "It's better than I thought you'd bring. It seems the wine I got after checking with the waitress passed her test. Poor people like you haven't seen wine like this, right?" "I don't mind sharing." Saying this, Susan tilted her glass of wine. "Here, have a taste. This is a wine someone like you wouldn't drink even once in a lifetime." I felt uncomfortable with Susan's behavior, laughing mockingly. This wine was crafted with care by artisans and prepared by the hotel to satisfy guests. Treating it like this was just wrong. I thought about saying something, but my friend quietly stopped me. The waitress waiting in the background quietly cleaned up the spilled wine. Come to think of it, this friend's family owns a brewery. Feeling helpless, I watched this scene. Susan has always been imperious, even since our student days. Nobody criticized her behavior. She either made a scene with her entourage or kept a low profile, quietly enjoying the party from a distance. That's how the group was divided. It's a shame because I was looking forward to enjoying a friendly and harmonious atmosphere with everyone. I wanted to return to a modest group with my friend, but Susan and her entourage wouldn't let me leave. They kept pestering me, making snide remarks and looking down on me. It's pathetic, isn't it? No matter how well you did in school, in the end, a poor person remains a poor person. Susan laughed mockingly, and her followers joined in. I graduated from Harvard University. You know what? What you did in school doesn't matter as much as what you've achieved in the end. Susan's words made her followers fully convinced, and even those who were just listening raised their voices in admiration at the fact that she graduated from Harvard University. Ultimately, there's a difference between people like you who just became a local doctor and us. Know your place. Even when she said that, I found myself at a loss for how to respond. Why is Susan so intent on looking down on me? Truly great people, people of a different class, don't behave in such a tasteless manner. But in this hometown, she's been treated like a princess. She must not be able to shake off that feeling. As a classmate, I worry whether she isn't embarrassed to behave like this. In a rage, but if I were to say such a thing, I could clearly see her getting furious. That would ruin the reunion. After all, Susan and her entourage probably only came to prop her up, and if this can just end without incident, then being ridiculed is not a big deal. I endured the disdainful remarks, just letting them wash over me as Susan dominated the reunion. Finally, the reunion ended, and everyone started heading home. Those living nearby walked, while those from the city stayed at the hotel. As for me, a local my home was a bit far. What's wrong? Your house is one of those shacks around here, right? Just walk back. That's what Susan said. No, my wife is picking me up today. At that, she looked surprised, then burst into laughter. What? You have a car? A mini truck or maybe a tractor? No, it's my wife's car, so it's not like that. Your wife must be poor too, huh? The moment she said that, I couldn't help but get angry. I could tolerate her bad-mouthing me, but not my wife. When I thought that, a strong light illuminated us. Then a car, that was clearly a luxury car, stopped in front of me. What? What is this? Susan looked confused as I waved. It was Lisa's car. Lisa, come over here. When I called her, a woman with more grace than the car itself stepped out. What? Your wife drives that. Is there a problem with my car? Lisa responded to Susan's remark. Seeing Lisa arrive in the luxury car, Susan began to tremble. Tom, did you enjoy the reunion? Lisa asked me with a wry smile. Yeah, sort of. Lisa, sensing something from my wry smile, turned her gaze to Susan. Oh, I thought you looked familiar. Aren't you the daughter of the Johnson family, a branch family? Do you need something from my husband? Susan's shoulders twitched when Lisa spoke to her. Your husband? This man is from the main family. Who are you referring to as this man? Lisa's voice was stern in response to Susan's words. Susan, shrinking in fear, continued with a trembling voice. So, you mean you, the Smith family's daughter, are married to Tom? But your last names are different. This must be some joke, right? Lisa answered calmly to Susan's blistered voice. We use different surnames due to our work. It's not uncommon these days, is it? Lisa, as if exasperated, stared down Susan. By the way, I heard your voice all the way inside the car. Who did you say was poor? Lisa smiled chillingly. Susan let out a whimper. Well, the Johnson family must be doing very well, right? I thought you often came to the main family asking for loans. It's not like that. When I said poor person, I meant Tom. So we were saying, you called my husband a poor person. Lisa's eyes narrowed sharply. They were like the eyes of a snake set on its prey. She was truly angry. Once Lisa got like this, she couldn't be stopped. I just watched. Susan, who had been acting all high and mighty, was now trembling like a criminal at the guillotine. After a while, Susan, still trembling, seemed to gather her courage and looked up. I still can't accept it. Why him? He's just a poor country boy. He's not worthy of the Smith family. Really, your birth and upbringing don't matter. I was drawn to his character. And you think he looks poor? Lisa gently wrapped her arm around mine and looked up at me. I simply responded with a smile. That's because of the Smith family's wealth, right? That's not true. What do you mean? How can he afford such a car with his own wealth? Oh dear, what are you talking about? Lisa said, lightly holding her forehead. Do you even know how he became a doctor? Well, he must have graduated from some local university. Susan hesitated. Lisa pressed on. Yes, we met at a university in the city. What? I didn't know that. You didn't ask me. I answered Susan's question smoothly. With my parents' and brother's support, I managed to study at the university I wanted to in the city. I graduated from its medical school and worked at a university hospital for a while. Susan's eyes widened and her lips trembled. Apparently, she had imagined me as a country doctor with a medical degree from a local university. Tom, don't be modest. Your achievements at the hospital and in academic societies have been outstanding, haven't they? Lisa's words made Susan grind her teeth and groan. But that means you received support, right? You just climbed up using the Smith family's assets and reputation. At those words, Lisa's face turned fierce. She stamped the ground as if about to break her heels. I can't ignore what you've been saying. Susan shrank back at Lisa's intensity. Seizing the moment, Lisa continued, I've been with Tom since university, and he never relied on my family. In fact, he's been careful not to let my name hinder him. That can't be. Certainly, you graduated from Harvard University. And then, what have you achieved since? Lisa's words made Susan groan. I've heard about the talented Miss Johnson from Harvard University. But that's all, isn't it? That's not true. After graduating, I worked at a big corporation. Just working there, right? No significant position or achievements that I've heard of. Lisa's words left Susan speechless. Tom indeed lived a modest life. However, he and his family, with their diligence and integrity, have achieved success. Tom's family did that. I never heard such a thing. Aren't you aware of his family's situation? Lisa tilted her head quizzically. His family successfully bred a new variety of vegetables and will soon launch it as a brand. What? But his family's fields are so small. Susan's voice rose in panic, and Lisa laughed merrily. Yes, to support Tom, they sold part of their land and succeeded in creating a rare variety from the remaining smaller field. That's right. My parents sold part of the field for me and tried new vegetable combinations with what was left. It was my brother's idea. Initially, there were many failures, and life was tough. But now, they are the only farmers producing a prestigious brand of vegetables. Tom could have become a hospital director with his credentials, if not for his health issues. Why is he a small-town practitioner then? I asked him to, concerned about his health. And though you call it a small practice, Tom still publishes papers in various academic societies. I didn't know that. Somehow, whenever Lisa spoke about our family, she had a triumphant look on her face, which finally made Susan start crying. Lisa, let's stop it there. I'm embarrassed too. No way, Tom. You never boast about yourself, so I'll take this chance to brag a lot for you. With a sulky attitude, I never managed to win against Lisa anyway. Susan, can't we stop this kind of thing? At my words, Susan turned her tearful eyes towards me. What do you mean? In a spiritless voice, she answered, and I slowly added to my words. Susan, you never lost, did you? That's why you were upset about always losing to me in studies during our school days. That's right. So what? I think it's amazing that you used that frustration as a springboard to pass Harvard University. Surprised by my words, Susan looked at me. But you were satisfied with just that, weren't you? What are you trying to say? After graduation, I wasn't satisfied. I wanted to learn more, to work to help people, and above all, I wanted to give back to my family. Susan silently listened to my story. I smiled gently at her. Because I'm greedy, I wanted to become a doctor, help people, repay my family, and marry Lisa. So I've always been running with an eye on the future. Are you saying I've stopped? Isn't that the case? You graduated from Harvard University, got a job at a big company, and were satisfied. Susan's face twisted in frustration, as if I hit the mark. I have overcome a lot, but I wasn't physically strong, got tired of working hard, and returned to my hometown. Surrounded by fields in a small town, I decided to support the people of this land for the rest of my life. What did you want to do when you enrolled in university, Susan? What do you want to do in your current company? I want you to take your time to think about that. As I said this, Lisa gently pulled my arm, leaving Susan, who continued to cry, crouched down. We got in the car and headed home of my peaceful and serene rural town. I watched the lively people working in the fields from my office window. Hey Lisa, are you really okay with this? Coming to such a rural town with me? I chose this. Plus, I can do most of my work remotely. She graduated from the economics department, started a business, and is now the president of a big company. Yet she reformed most of her work to be remote and followed me to this rural town. We both travel to the city for important conferences or meetings, but generally, we face each other in our office, each doing our work. A refreshing breeze enters through the window, fluttering the curtains. A peaceful and serene slow life. This is the shape of my happiness.